Hey, tonight is a very, very, very important class, and it's winter survival. It's not just winter, it's cold weather survival, and any time that we may be exposed to the elements. In a nutshell, you can have all the food, all the water you can imagine, but if we had to evacuate this building, say tonight, let's say it was even 10 degrees last week, I walked out today, that average, that cold weather last week, 50 degrees, January. But even if it was a bit cold, a bit chillier, it could be as little as 20 to 30 minutes before many of you would be in early stages of hypothermia, depending on how prepared we were for the elements. So that's the point of tonight, is it helps us all be better prepared. So we don't only have 15, 20 minutes, we've got the time we need and are able to provide a variety of situations, as well as just be more comfortable and enjoy the recreational pursuits, whether it's going to a football game or a Klondike. Believe it or not, I enjoy Klondike because it's about like spending time at the beach, and we're going to show you exactly how and why. Lance, as usual, has the role, so we're going to pass that around. You don't necessarily have to check off if you're here, but make sure that if you're not getting our emails, you get your email on the list, and then if you're not getting them, also check and see if we've got it misspelled. Lance will go ahead and fire that around. And, we'll jump in. My name is Derek Haney. Lance and I run the Mapleton State Preparedness Program. And tonight we've got a special guest, John Arbon, who's also from our community, and also a cold weather expert, guru, and nut. He spent 50 nights the last 3 months overnight out in extreme conditions just to prove out a few things, but it's going to be very interesting. Actually, I was going to the end, we'll do it right now. I'm going to turn in a few seconds over to Dr. Keystone about the class. Claudia Keystone. Just real quick.
Thanks. Thank you, Derek and Lance. My name is Dr. Claudia. Many of you know me. I have a clinic in Provo. February 11th, at Salt Lake Community College in Sandy, Utah, we are putting on a wellness survival event from 9 to 5. We're going to learn out what are the three top killers you have when you shelter in place, what basic homeopathy you can start utilizing now, beginning auricular therapy. There's several things we're going to be learning, so if you're interested, please contact me after. I have some cards. I didn't come prepared to pass anything out because this is your event, but I just wanted to let you know that's a possibility. Just write down wellnesssurvival.com, and you can go and see the classes and sign up. Thanks.
Okay, John, you ready to roll? You plugged in? Yep. There's two things we hope you walk away. So I'm going to give you the two ends of the class, so you can just get up and leave right now. One is, when we're done, we hope you realize that anything cotton is a potential killer, especially when it comes to cold weather. We're going to really examine and evaluate all their hows and whys, but cotton is, you can have the best cold weather survival equipment. And if you're wearing a cotton t-shirt, you'll screw it all up. Two is, we hope that everybody will go out and acquire a sheet of 4 mil or 6 mil plastic. The stuff you can go down to, I already checked today, Jones Paint Glass or Home Depot, and you can get a roll of it, 100 feet by 8 feet wide, for 20 bucks. If there was a disaster and we had to seal our windows and doors, that goes for 500 to 1,000 bucks if you can even find it. And everywhere in the middle is why we're going to give you the hows and whys. So I want to kind of jump to the punch, and we're going to go into, why don't you want to wear cotton, and all the way to different types of insulation. To kick right off, number one in winter, when you're outside and it's very cold, and you exhale, what happens? You see this gust of smoke. In fact, as a kid, it was kind of fun. You thought you'd pretend like you're smoking. What is it? That is moisture escaping. So you're dehydrated every breath. Well, so much of cold weather survival is about moisture management. If you don't have any moisture to manage, there's really no point to the rest of this. Dehydration is a major killer, and it doesn't seem like it because when you're cold and cool, you don't feel as thirsty. It's just one of those crazy things where I see some nods. A lot of us that are hunters and get out in the winter, we'll get trucking along until you're just out of energy, you're lethargic, and in a nutshell, you're dehydrated. Well, there's a couple of things that happen physiologically. One is, as we get cold, blood is being pulled from our extremities into our core to keep us warm. And so we have less circulation. At the same time, if we're dehydrated, that blood is becoming thicker. And so we've got two things that are competing against one another. A is it's trying to pull it to our core, and it's becoming thicker, and it's not able to move as quick. And so staying hydrated is absolutely crucial. So we'll move on to the next thing. We're going to be talking about how nature already had it figured out. I mean, if we talk about cold weather survival and staying warm, God had it figured out with polar bears and bison and deer and sheep. And it boils down to, they all have a layer that's called skin. We have a layer called skin. They have a layer of skin. That skin, just like our skin, breathes, respires, it protects. At the same token, on top of that layer of skin is a single or mono layer of insulation. Now, depending on where that animal is, that layer of insulation is thicker or thinner. And depending on the season, we've all heard of molting, it becomes thicker or thinner. It's perfect. How do the polar bears, how do the deer, how do the sheep all survive? They've got a built-in perfect survival set, which is a monolayer of breathable material, i.e. skin, and a single layer of insulation that is also breathable, that allows moisture management. So as the deer runs and it perspires, it's allowing that moisture to escape because warm, moist wants to go to cold and dry. And if you remember that component, warm, moist wants to go to cold and dry, and we just want to trap the heat, but it still allows the moisture to escape. So we don't want to be creating ice blocks around us. But nature has it figured out to a T. And what have we done? We've gone and messed around with it as men, with all kinds of different fibers and materials. These fibers, tangling them up and making them so where they don't manage moisture nearly as well. So with that, let's jump right into base layer. So it's impractical for any of us to just skin. You're going to wear a base layer. What's a very common base layer? Cotton t-shirt.
T-shirt and jeans.
Cotton underwear. Why is that a problem?
Cotton retains the moisture, and it holds it against your skin, and it keeps you cold. In my experience in staying out in the colder weather, I was out in this 30-degree weather, but I had, not just this winter, but this particular time, I was actually wearing a cotton t-shirt and jeans inside my bag. I was cold, even at 30 degrees, and I knew my bag was good. And so what I did is I got out and I actually took that off, and I slept in my underwear. And I actually warmed up because I had removed that moisture from my skin. It was against my skin. So when he talks about moisture management, that's exactly right. Jim Phillips, who has pioneered a lot in cold weather survival, describes our bodies as a leaky bag of water. We're constantly breathing out, our moisture leaves that way, we excrete moisture from all the pores of our body, even when we're sleeping. We don't have to necessarily be active to perspire. And so when we drink water, we're restoring that, and our bodies use that water to keep us warm. It's basically an essential part of fueling our bodies, that internal heat. And so in drinking water and eating properly, we can we can actually be warmer. If you've ever been dehydrated in the wintertime, even mildly, it can affect your ability to stay warm. So when he talks about cotton, that moisture is leaving your body, and it stays. If you've ever worn a cotton shirt, I mean, wearing a wet cotton shirt in the summertime is great because it does what? It keeps you cool.
Be cool 25 times faster.
Exactly. And so when you wear it in the wintertime, it's going to do the same thing, but you don't want to be cool in the wintertime, you want to be warm. So synthetics, and we're going to cover a lot of different synthetics, different materials that work very well in the wintertime, keeping that moisture. Actually, it allows that moisture to leave away from your body. A lot of people call it a wicking process. It's not wicking. Wicking has to do with liquid. This is an evaporative process. It's a vapor, a moisture vapor that's leaving your body, and it's going away from you toward the cold air or the lower pressure. It's really wanting to get into the physics
in whatever that layer is. And so we want to just allow the natural progression of warm and moist to go to cold and dry. So let's jump right into base layer. This is the church project, so a lot of us are going to be wearing underwear. Well, didn't want to do anything with the sacrilege, so I got the sandals. And there are a lot of options, all the way from 100% cotton to 100% nylon to a lot of blends in between. And over the years, I've tried a lot of things. Well, in a nutshell, cotton in any form, whether it's 100% or 15%, is going to retain moisture. And so if you've got something that's at 85 and 15, you're still going to be retaining some moisture, and moisture cools 25 times faster. I mean, just think about it. You go down to 7 weeks in the summer, and it's 85 degrees. You get wet, you get out, and the slightest little breeze, and you're chilly. Well, in winter, I mean, that is unbelievable. And so, case in point, my wife, she's hating this already, but that's okay. She goes running with her friends at 6 o'clock in the morning. This happens whether it's June, July, or even December and January. And so they get out and they get trucking around at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they'll work up a bit of a sweat, so they'll actually perspire a little bit. So they'll actually warm up. It's kind of great when you're running. I mean, I love 45 degrees when running a marathon. It's just perfect. However, when you stop, what happens to that moisture? If it's stuck to you, it starts to cool, and it cools 25 times faster. Well, we've gone with what the church calls Dry-Lux, or the sports material, which is 85% nylon, 15% cotton. And frankly, it's been fabulous. However, in talking to Phillips a few weeks ago, and by the way, we're both 20 years, it was first class I took it from Jim Phillips. We've been great friends ever since. The mechanics of trying to wick moisture, not wick, but draw moisture, allow moisture to leave, has to be a synthetic, so polyester or nylon, slightly nudge to polyester, but either one will work. And you want a coarse weave, not a fine weave. And I'm going to do a little demonstration up here that you're all going to want to come up and actually feel. Because a fine weave is something that came into perspective. I've gotten some shirts at some races that you perspire in, and they kind of stick to you. However, about 5 years ago, I bought this t-shirt in Hawaii. In fact, every time you see, everybody thinks I own like one t-shirt. Now I own 15 of the same shirt. These are so fabulous. 100% polyester and a very coarse weave. So if I get out and we're surfing, my wife, I get out and within 20 minutes I'm dry. If it's cold weather, one winter I wore it and realized I'm never getting wet. It's just I'm constantly staying dry and comfortable. It's a coarse weave. So my wife, finally, we went and got 100% nylon, which it doesn't seem like much. It seems like, gosh, you're going to freeze because it's just nothing. She went out and ran, this is just a week and a half ago, ran it, same thing. It was about 7 degrees. Came home, how was it?
It wasn't very cold.
First time she came home, it wasn't cold. In a nutshell, it flat out works. You do not want to have cotton actually touching your skin. So if you're LDS and it's garments, 100% polyester, and interestingly enough, they have a thermal polyester, which is also 100% polyester, but unlike this, which is very coarse and allows the perspiration or the moisture to pass, the denser weave of the Thermax tangles up and it actually traps that moisture. So this is the thing. I've got a jar of water. I'm dunking all of these. I'm going to wring them out at the end of the class, and everybody can come up and see. And you'll see the 100% fine weave, it clings to your fingers. The 100% Thermal Max, it clings to your fingers and is very wet. The 100% polyester just mesh, we're right on the money. So with that, you've got a base layer. And if you're not wearing LDS garments, what would you be wearing as a base layer? Well, 100% polyester or nylon t-shirts and undergarments or underwear is just a base layer. So we're basically allowing the skin to do what it naturally wants to do, and that's warm, moist, go to cold and dry.
We're going to be talking about a lot of different things, and most of the things we're going to talk about are principles. You can apply these all the way across the board. We're not here to promote any particular system because not any particular system is going to fit everybody. You know, you've got different lifestyles, and some systems are going to work better for you than others. And when Derek talks about the garments, especially the blends, you know, any natural blend, it's a natural synthetic blend, is still going to hold that moisture against you. That cotton, it just loves the moisture. Wool, being a natural fiber, is much better than cotton. But like you said earlier, when you take that fur off the animal and you tangle it all up, what happens is, yeah, you're creating those pockets of air that are going to provide that insulation, but you're also producing barriers for that moisture to leave. And over time, I mean, even wool that's wet will keep you much drier or much warmer than cotton. So, you know, if you have wool and it works for you, you know, keep it up. Keep using it. It's great. I don't particularly like wool because it itches. You know, and I know a lot of people suffer from that issue.
Just to give a little bit of what it looks for. So here's 100% polyester. Maybe you can't see it, but it's actually sticky. You can actually see it clean with the fingers. When you feel the cotton, you'll see the cotton is just incredibly damp, and it also clings. But then this is as wet as any of them. It's just light and fluffy. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's no cling, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So let's move right on to the next phase, and that is then what? So what are we doing to emulate nature in the way of insulation? And you named one. In fact, what else? What are the common insulators? I mean, I think many of you know. Wool, down, a ton of different polyesters. Yeah.
Yeah, the polyesters generally consist of polyfill, polar fleece, polar tack, you know, any other technical name they want to give polyester. Generally, it's a polyester batting. Some are treated with different chemicals. One in particular is called lamellite. It's something that Wiggy's produces, that black tag there, coats their fibers with. They coat it with a silicone. They impregnate that fiber with silicone, and it helps to keep the water from sticking to the fibers.
So we want to allow, again, warm, moist to go to cold and dry. Down, let's just jump right into one of the biggest. Right behind cotton in getting in trouble in a cold weather situation, believe it or not, is down. If you're only out for a day or so, it's not that big a deal. But has anybody here ever had their down jacket get wet? What happened? Yeah, 2 pieces of nylon. Party's over, everyone out at the pool. Or in that case, you're in the pool because all that moisture is just sucked right around you. So it's a great fashion thing. In fact, my wife, did you bring yours? You know, that's the thing, is you can't get the ladies away from their little Patagonia kind of thing because it's nice and warm, it looks great in Park City, yada, yada, yada. However, if all of a sudden things got nasty and we had to survive, and let's say it was a horrible windstorm and you had snow and sleet and ice, that thing is just going to suck right up to her and into the party's over, everyone out of the pool, over, back in the pool. So down is a killer. But
I was going to say, it doesn't have to be an inundation of liquid. You've got the same principle. You're perspiring all the time. You're going to wear or use down bags for an extended period of time. That moisture is going to start to collect in the feathers. In fact, the climbers that do the K2 and the Mount Everest, they use down, but they also use a vapor barrier inside their bag. So that moisture, they slip this liner bag in there that's a vapor barrier. So the vapor, the perspiration that they're putting out doesn't go past that, doesn't go through the down. So when they wake up, they're essentially wet. And they're sleeping in their own sweat, which to me doesn't sound very appealing. There's other ways of dealing with that. But that's to prevent the moisture from getting into that down and compromising the loft value of the down and the insulation that they drop.
good point. So what happens when you're wearing a down jacket or you're sleeping in a down sleeping bag? It continues to collect. In fact, it was about 14 years ago when I first learned this principle, and we decided, let's go out and try it. So you camp in the same sleeping bag night after night after night. You weigh the sleeping bag at the beginning, and you weigh it after. Now, I didn't go out like these guys that go out and they really hardcore camp, and they did. And they weighed 4.4 pounds at the beginning of the week, 12.2 pounds at the end of the week. trapping all that perspiration that was coming just naturally from while they were sleeping. And what happens is you're actually creating an ice box that is building around you. Now again, if it's only a couple of days, not that big a deal. But if you're going to be out there for extended periods of time, you might get up one morning, feel fine, come back that night, and your sleeping bag is now a rigid, frozen mass because of all that trapped moisture. So again, you've got to allow warm, moist to get to cold and dry. And so we're going to talk about moisture barriers and waterproofing and supposedly breathable materials, which there's a place. Again, recreationally, there may be a place. But ultimately, if any time we're stopping the progression of warm and moist to get to cold and dry, we're potentially creating condensation, and it's going to store. It's going to stay. So with that in mind, down, it's great recreationally. It looks great on the ski slopes, but gratefully on the ski slopes, if you're close to a lodge and you push comes to shove, you've got help. If you are actually worrying about a survival situation, by the way, going back, way up, we're going to be talking about fortifying our homes towards the end. Why do we think we spend 45 minutes to 50 minutes on ourselves than our homes? In a nutshell, how easy is it to warm this room as opposed to how easy is it to warm ourselves? And we're portable. So you know you may not be able to adequately warm your home or even a room in your home, but that's just it. If you can warm yourself, you can be okay. And if you need to move, you take it with you. It's incredibly portable. So that's why we're going to be spending most of our time on clothing and how to protect ourselves, and then we're going to jump into some pretty cool stuff on fortifying your house. So with that, down is a no-no. Wool, kind of okay, but in a nutshell, we want to get to synthetics. Why synthetics? Synthetics allow moisture management. They allow warm and moist to go to cold and dry.
Because we don't have fur. Actually, some of us have less of it than others.
Nice to bring that up.
And
So,
keep in mind that when we're talking about these principles, we're talking about long term. And like we keep reiterating, you know, all of these materials that we have that have been very popular, down, wool, synthetics, they work great for the short term. The Wiggies bag there that I use, actually I don't use it anymore, but I have in the past. It's good for several days in a row, and then it starts to compromise.
So what do we do beyond that? So you think, okay, you may want to wear a sweater. Well, again, everybody thinks I have one thing, which I have a few. What's a great insulated sweater? A lot of us have cotton, and they feel like they should be warm because they're nice and heavy. Just like some of those wool sweaters, nice and heavy. Here's the problem. Heavy is more material and not as much trapped air. And we're looking again, foam is a great example. If you just visualize a sponge, an open cell sponge is a great visual of all these tiny little pockets of trapped air. That is the essence of staying warm, of thermal management. And it allows moisture to manage, but also trapping in those little pockets of air. And so as we look at other materials, be it a fleece, or be it wool, or be it some other synthetic, light and fluffy is always going to be warmer than heavy and dense. Always going to be warmer than heavy and dense. In fact, as I've over the last several years been experimenting with a variety of different fleece, you can get some of these really thick, really heavy fleeces, and we bought some, and it seems like it should be really warm. And as a fluke, I went and bought this really cheap, just pullover, kind of like this, at a trash one once. It was very light, really fluffy, and amazingly, I kept gravitating towards it. Tiny pockets of air with very little material, and it allows moisture management. So fleece is a phenomenal insulator. And so if you look at a basic, what you could be wearing around the house on a daily basis, nylon, fleece, possibly something that's made out of wool, but again, light and fluffy. Alpaca is another great one. Wool retains 30% of its weight in moisture. Alpaca supposedly does a little bit less because it has hollow strands, and that's just, the alpaca, the Yama type deals, and that ties to the Yama farmers. So alpaca is another fabulous one. I don't know if you've got any of you to add. So having something that you can wear around the house, because we may not be, if we're, let's say there is a power outage, and we've got to basically just stay warm around our houses. Or we're going to want to seal off the windows, which we're going to talk about at the end, and seal off any drafts. But then we want to stay warm. If everybody in the family had something that was fleece, something that was light and fluffy, and again something that was synthetic or close to that, that would allow moisture management, you can be amazingly comfortable in your home. Amazingly comfortable. Beyond that, what's happening outside right now is, in fact, this is probably the toughest weather to survive, and that's right on the threshold of freezing. When you're at between 25 and 35 to 40 degrees, that's the worst because it's just wet. If it's 10 below zero, it's dry. I mean, it's cold, but it's dry. You don't have to worry about all this external stuff. But at 30, 32, 35, what's the problem? It's 35 degrees in the afternoon, and then by 10 o'clock at night, and what happens like that? I don't know if everybody got the fun experience we did on Sunday, so it did this the night before. It was like 35 degrees, and it kind of started to melt all around, and we got to church, and the entire parking lot, all out where we just parked, was one entire sheet of ice. The kids had an absolute ball of it. We were just zigzagging, sliding all the way in. But that's it. Then it freezes. And so this is the toughest time. So you normally would want to have something that's not waterproof per se, but you do need something that's water resistant when you have these kind of conditions, because you can't have that water just coming in and coming through and soaking your system. So I don't know if you want to jump right into it.
Keep in mind that litter gear should not be waterproof. Waterproof is going to keep water out, and it's also going to keep water in. And so water resistant is the best. If you can take the fabric and you can, with force, push your breath through that fabric, you should be all right. There's enough porosity, I guess you could call it, that'll allow that water through. And also, it'll be wind resistant, because your insulation isn't going to do you much good if the wind can just blow right through it and take all that nice warm air away from you. So water resistant for your outer shell is the best, not waterproof, because you want to get rid of that moisture. You don't want it next to you.
Anytime you've got a barrier, so anytime you're adding layers, and this is something that I think many of you were here last year, and Phillips talks about, and it's actually true. You want to stick with a monolayer, meaning a single layer. You don't want to have any additional layer, because every time you've got heat going to cold, it's kind of on this trajectory. Well, anytime you add an additional layer, you add a bend or an acceleration in the temperature change. And what does that cause? Condensation. And so you've got condensation building at each respective layer. It's just impractical for most of us to think about having a single layer of insulation and being able to do a variety of things that we're going to be doing. Now, if you're in a full-on cold weather situation and you can do a base layer of nylon, 1 inch of foam, and an outside layer, that's ideal. The rest of us, and we're going to have to kind of compromise, but realize the more layers you put, the more you're potentially adding as a vapor, not barrier, but as an area that will accelerate condensation. And if those are anything that is not fully breathable or is kind of windproof or water resistant, then it accelerates it even further, and then you do start creating this ice block from the outside in. So with that in mind, space blankets. What's a roll of space blankets? I mean, a lot of 72-hour kids have a space blanket. Let's just jump right into it. And there's a lot of survival instructors will say 72-hour kids will kill you. And a lot of it is because if you're middle of February, but I've got the stats, in February in Mapleton, the average temperature is 33.6 degrees. In January, it's 28.6. In March, 41.5. November, 40.1. In December, 30.7. Now you get into April, May, and October, it gets into the 50s. And then June, July, August, September, it's an average temperature between 65 and 75. So you don't have to worry about it. But the rest of the time, if you're in a colder type month or setting, and you have, let's say, a fleece or a wool or something that's light and fluffy, that allows the moisture to escape. But you go outside and it's windy. What does that wind do? It's light and fluffy. Cuts right through. In fact, I remember starting the Boston Marathon in Hopkinton. It was 72 degrees, and we were cooking. I mean, just hot. We couldn't hardly stand it until we came up and we were coming right down into Boston, and that easterly breeze hit us. I've never seen so many guys with hypothermia, including my buddy that's traveling with us. Got to the thing, and they had space blankets. And that's all it took was just to cut that wind, and it felt so much better. So if you've got a good base layer, something that'll insulate, and if needs be, a space blanket, you know what? It does an essential thing, which is cut the wind. But a space blanket and a 2-pin and a 72-hour kit, I tell anybody on any one of those months, good luck. Why don't they make clothing out of space blankets? It doesn't work. You need the trapped pockets of air. Now, it does serve a purpose in blocking air, and it does work a little bit better than just a piece of plastic, which in a pinch, you know, if you had to wrap yourself in a plastic bag or a garbage bag or something to block the wind, you do what you need to block the wind, realizing that as soon as that obstacle is passed, you want to get it off because, again, you want to allow that moisture management.
I'd encourage you, those of you who are here for emergency preparedness, to take your equipment, go out in your backyard and try it. If you have a 72-hour kit that's just sitting in your closet and it's still all in the new packaging, you're setting yourself up for failure. The reason is because when that emergency hits, you're not going to be thinking clearly. And if you haven't taken that out and practiced with it and found out if it actually works or not, you could be in for some very big surprises. A classic example is this space blanket. I went out and I sat in the wintertime in one of those space blanket bags, and it did nothing for me. I was shivering within 10 minutes. The moisture was collecting on the inside, and it tore. And once those things tear, they don't stop. They just go all the way across. You know, and you're getting your dollar's worth. So, you know, what they're good for, though, and there are some purposes for them. If you have a fire, you need to bank that fire. Put that behind the fire so you're reflecting the heat back to you, but not so close that it melts it. You know, it can double as a tarp to go over the top. But do not expect that thing to keep you warm. So if you have gear like that, or any gear whatsoever, in your 72-hour kits, it's still in new packaging. Break it out. The safety of your backyard is the best place to test this stuff under the weather conditions that are probably the most adverse. Because if it fails, guess where you can go? Back in the house and sit on the air and get warm. Okay? But if you're in an emergency situation, you don't have natural gas in your house, and you're trying to use this thing and it's failing, you're in a very desperate situation. So test your equipment. Don't just trust it, test it.
Most 72-hour kits are great, of course, because there is a lot of misinformation. And so, you know, they have a purpose, but you've got to get into the mechanics of the housing wise. And we're going to jump now into some of those outside layers, and we're going to get into some things that you may not consider, but a lot of the stuff is around us everywhere. We'll jump into it. So, you've got a base layer. You've got basically a nylon. We're going to potentially a fleece, fluffy nylon, or some other type of insulator. And then we want to have some kind of a shell. At that point, there's a number of shells. And are these all absolutely ideal? You know, that's just it. To get into the stuff that's absolutely breathable, absolutely ideal, it would require buying a lot of new stuff. But if we go and look at our stuff, and like John was talking about, a good test of something that is wind resistant but not windproof is you should be able to blow through it. If you blow through it, make that noise, it's windproof. If you can actually, and it goes all the way through, that's what you're looking for. Where it breaks the wind enough, but it still allows that natural flow of moisture.
You don't want to be able to actually breathe through it. Okay? Otherwise, that wind is going to do the exact same thing to you. It's going to breathe right through it and take all that warm air away.
There's the fine line, and frankly, if it's really cold and it's really windy, I'd rather err on the side of being a little too windproof because it's nasty. So with that, we'll move right along. So we've got basic even pants, 100% polyester, 100%. These are 100% polyester, and these also are 100% polyester. We do get some that are nylon or polyester. Again, dry very quickly. Jeans, holy hen, I don't know if you've been out like hunting and stuff, but you get out there and you're trudging along, it's fine until you stop. And then it's just unbelievable how cold you can become. As well as the weight. Burnell, did you come? Burnell Taylor? Burnell and I went down to Egypt 3 several years ago, and that's a slot camp down southern Utah. Really technical. Too technical to take the youth we found because 2 guys died in the canyon just over it when we were coming out. But as we were going through, you rappel down in, and then you go through these narrows, and you get in these areas, and the only way to get through is you've got to swim for it. Well, we got to the very last, and while you were hiking through, and maybe waist high, the very last area, couldn't feel the bottom. And I thought, fine, I'm just going for it. So Dove in and nothing. Didn't feel bottom and just side stroked because it was very narrow, maybe a incredibly narrow bug larva. It was pretty nasty. So side stroke all the way through, and hey, no big deal, and just waved at the other end. Then Burnell and his brother started coming through. About halfway in, there was all this noise. And I thought it was the funniest thing I ever heard. I didn't realize he was fighting for his life, or else I would have gone in. It just sounded like, a couple of brothers and kind of having a snip going through a tough situation. What had happened is he got in that, and his pants, jeans, I was wearing nylon. He was wearing boots. I was wearing Tevas. Full of water, he sunk like a rock. And he finally forced his way up, jammed his elbows in that bug larva, and finally just worked his way through. And by the time he got out, I'm like, you're covered in bug larva. You better go wipe it off. I'm not going back. So he might go back to the truck. Covered in bug larva. Well, here was the interesting thing. Within 20 minutes, I was dry. It took us 3 hours to get back. We got in the car, drove back where we were camping, and he was still wet. And so, jeans, horrible, if you're in a survival situation.
Very similar.
Nylon.
Yeah, very similar situation. We went river rafting with a friend of mine and the scout camp situation, and they dumped their canoe. He was wearing jeans, and even though it was 65, 70 degrees that day, he still got mild hypothermia because of the wetness of his jeans and the shade that we were going through. And it took forever for those pants to dry out. Fortunately, I had another pair of synthetics that he was able to wear, but up until we were able to get him changed, he was shivering uncontrollably, which is the first stage of hypothermia.
It can be 55, 60. If you're wet, you can be getting into some pretty scary situations as far as hypothermia, especially if you're a blonde gal like my wife. You could be at 4th of July parade, 80 degrees, and it gets a little moist, and then it comes. That's it. No, it's all about staying dry and then trapping tiny pockets of air between you and the outside and allowing that moisture to move. So moving right along, you've got a number of shells. This is, amazingly, a down parka that has a water-resistant outside. It can kind of work. But then we're going to jump into, if you really want to stay dry and comfortable, this is something that until you try it, you're never going to make it. You're never going to believe it. But the Klondike. Everybody hears about the Klondike going down, and it can be 5 degrees, it can be 5 below zero, throwing snowballs at you, getting snow in the tent, and it's just a wet, mucky ordeal. And then it freezes. And then after you're frozen, they go out and they let you freeze even longer while they do that little campfire thing at the end. You've been to that, they shoot off fireworks, and by then your eyes are frozen shut, so you can't even see them anyway. And you're just sitting there just thinking, when is this going to get over? Well, I wore these pants. I had a fleece liner that my wife now uses to run in. This half-inch foam jacket, and I wore this down over it. And moon boots. I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but remember the old days?
These are laughing boots.
How geeky you were going to grade school wearing moon boots. They had it figured out. All this high fashion stuff they do nowadays doesn't work. These are high-tech moon boots, and I sat there at that fireside, 4 degrees for 2.5 hours, and I just waited for that slightest little tinge of discomfort, and it never came. I have never gotten cold in those boots, not even remotely, and I've never gotten cold wearing a half-inch, not an inch, a half-inch of foam with some kind of an outside shell. And I've had similar results with this, not in as cold temperatures, and fleece. But again, when you get into mechanics and it works, it's rocking cool. This is actually open cell foam. This is something I bought from Jim Phillips, I don't know how many years ago. And this is not a promotion for Phillips products because he doesn't even make anything. But whether it's John or whether it's getting materials and doing something or just emulating, the reason we still use foam is, whether you find it or not, is we're trying to simulate foam. And it is light and airy and fluffy. And so whether it's foam, whether it's fleece, whether it's an alpaca sweater, whether it's a down sweater, light, airy, and fluffy. And allow that moisture to escape. The pants, you can do different things with pants, and frankly, recreationally, it gets way too hot. wearing the pants. If you're surviving, I guess that could be your friend. But again, like, I see Brady here, and he's up hunting and stuff. If we'll just look at transitioning to things that dry quicker and don't trap the moisture, and then possibly some kind of a thermal layer like a fleece. You'll be amazed at how warm it is. It's a lot of ski pants, and so let's get into synthetics. And so, what would be better than denim in a parka? What would be better than denim in a parka?
You've got your polyester paddings and you have your foam. It's an open cell polyurethane foam, to answer your question, and not all foams are created equal. You'll buy it if you're interested in the foam. And like I said, this is not a promotion for the foam. What we're talking about is principles and the materials that we use. If you're interested in the foam, what you need to look for is something you can ball up really tightly and that will just spring right back. Okay? There are furniture foams out there that you can ball up really tightly, and put a lot of pressure on it, and if you let go, it'll just kind of lazily back.
You picture those, what is that, they make mattresses out of that, the heat-sensitive foam?
Memory
Oh,
foam.
That's the exact what you don't want.
Yeah, because memory foam,
Memory
a
foam.
lot of people have asked me, well, what about memory foam? That's really comfortable. I said, yeah, it is comfortable when it's warm. However, when it's cold, it gets rock hard. If you've ever been in a cold room and you put your head on a memory foam pillow, it's clunk. And then you slowly sink into it as it warms up. So, and it's also, it doesn't breathe. And
It's not
so,
like fluffy.
you're going to just,
Fluffy, but not like.
yeah, you're just going to block the moisture if you choose something like that, and it will fail miserably for you.
Open cell what foam?
It's an open cell polyurethane foam.
Polyurethane?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the majority of the foam that's sold out there is substandard. It will work, but it will not work as well as other foams. Which, I used to buy it from places in Salt Lake, but they've changed, and that foam there is a second best. I have to talk to a guy down in Spring City who actually has ordered a full semi-load of foam in to see if he will actually sell it, because he actually makes the foam clothing as a business for himself. So I don't know whether that would
It's
be.
selling oil fields, and so we're currently talking, right now it's kind of one of those gaps where there really isn't much available, but he's selling to oil fields, and we're gonna see if he'll build some without the Carbon X liner, which is great if you don't want to get caught on fire, but it's lousy if you really want to manage moisture.
And speaking
Something
of
like-
fire, I don't know how many of you have boys that have come home from their scout camp with the soles of their shoes melted, or, a big hole in their jacket or something like that. Okay, well, here's what happens. People get cold, and they're still wearing their insulation, and they walk up to the fire, and they're not close enough because they can't feel it, so they get closer. They can't feel it, so they get closer. Well, it's insulation, silly. It's going to insulate both directions, and so you're not going to feel it until you get really close and you're actually lit on fire. And so, if it's wet, you'll almost just have to take it off, or at least open it up, get your skin exposed to that fire. Now, if you're going to make your own clothing for your kids or for yourself, now as adults, if you understand the principles of insulation, that insulation is going to work against that fire as well as keep the warmth that your body is producing inside your clothing, go ahead and use a synthetic outer. But if your kids are close to that fire and they catch fire, that's going to burn very quickly. Use a tightly woven cotton. It's okay for the outer shell, okay? Because it's not against the skin. It will still get that moisture away from them. And if they do get close to that fire, what happens is it starts to get brown. Okay? If you've ever tried to burn cotton, it's difficult to actually get it to really flame up. Yeah. And so cotton is an excellent outer shell for kids who are going to be around fires. That way it'll give you an excellent warning before they light up too badly.
There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer for everything. It's just basically, we're hoping that after we're done here, you're going to look at your current wardrobe a little bit different, and then as you shop and move forward, hopefully transitioning to more synthetics and just realizing, allow them to, said it a million times, say it a million times, allow them to be warm and moist, get cold and dry, and try to trap as many pockets of air, light and fluffy, in between. Footwear and gloves is another biggie that always comes up. Now, the bottom line is, if your feet and hands are cold, what does that actually mean? More often than not, it means your core is also cold. In fact, it's interesting. If you wear, like, you see these guys are wearing just vests, these ranters and stuff, and it's just blistering cold. You're like, how in the world? Well, if they're keeping their core warm and their circulation is fine, then it's amazing how that'll still reach out to the extremities. And so, first and foremost, you got to work on your core rather than just getting a hand warmer or something. Try to keep your core warm.
That's where your hydration comes in too.
Yeah. But ultimately, you still come down to the digits and the feet particularly. And
Now, I know gloves are, for lack of a better word, sexy. Okay? You know, you've got all your digits, you can use them. But what's happening is you're isolating each one of your fingers from its partner. And just like embers in a fire, you take one ember out, it's going to die. Okay? So mittens really are a great advantage. They have a great advantage over gloves in the cold because all your fingers are together. They can share that warmth, and just like embers in the fire. You know, they keep each other alive, with the exception of your thumb. But it's shorter, it's stouter, it's going to handle it all right. But then, you know, too, if your thumb gets cold, you can always pull it out and stick it with its friends in the main compartment. And then, you know, just wrap your thumb up like that, you'll warm it up, and then put it back in. Something,
kids, we've all done this.
yeah, something you want to keep in mind too, the winter time is not a time where you're going to move fast. Things don't happen quickly and properly in the winter time. Move slow, move purposefully. Yeah.
Water resistant outside and a polyester filler, or what do we?
Polyester filler will work. These particular ones are foam. I mean, I've taken not these mittens, but some really just, you could look at them and say, holy cow, that's just an oven mitt, John. You know, I took 2 pieces of 1/2-inch foam and I sandwiched a synthetic on the inside and cotton on the outer, and it looks like an oven mitt. Well, I took those and I made a snow cave. And by the time I was done digging the snow cave out, these mittens were absolutely soaking wet. But my hands were warm. And when I slept that night, I set them next to me. And I did this experiment because I'd heard Jim Phillips say all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. You know, but I don't have the personal experience. So I put these mittens next to me, and I stood them up on end like this. Okay? So during the night, they froze because there was no heat inside of it to push that water out. When I woke up in the morning, I thought, okay, I'm going to put them on. Let's see just exactly how well these work. So I put them on, and I worked them, and they cracked because of the ice in them. And about 30 seconds later, my hands actually started warming up, even though they were soaking wet.
Even though they had the outer cotton on the outside.
Even though they had the outer cotton on the outside. But it still had a 1/2 inch of insulation, keeping that moisture away from my skin.
He's hitting a key element. Sometimes your best bet is to actually leave it on. And so you might think, gosh, it's getting kind of damp, so let's take it off. Well, you take it off, and if it's really cold, it's going to freeze, and that's it. I mean, it's not going to dry. Once it's frozen, it's not going to dry, and then you've got to reheat it up to where it can get to the point where you can allow it to expire, or allow it to go where it wants to go. So sometimes the best bet is to keep moving and keep it on, because your own body heat will dry those things out from the inside out, especially if you're right back to allowing that flow of warm and moist to go to cold and dry.
Sorry, one more question.
Go right ahead.
So the open cell foam looks like neoprene. Is there ever a time you use neoprene, like on the bottom of the tent if it's wet?
No. This is a sample of the open cell foam. I mean, this, you know, I can breathe right through it.
It bounces right back.
And this particular sample does. I have samples that don't. And 2 weeks ago, I wrapped up a piece of the good foam. I really balled it up really tight, wrapped it up, and I couldn't find it today.
So if you pitch a tent,
Yeah.
if you pitch a tent and moisture comes into the bottom of the tent and you're in a sleeping bag, what do you lay down? Just a piece of plastic?
Yes, you want a vapor barrier between you and, well, underneath you. And there's ways of managing that. I don't know if we're going to have time to get into that tonight.
It gets a lot more technical, because right underneath you, if you've got just a piece of plastic, or you've got, like, say, a Thermarest, which is completely waterproof because it's inflated, and you're not going to get any water through it. Any perspiration that's coming downwards, it's gonna hit that, it's gonna vapor, it's going to condense and then potentially freeze. And so
Yeah.
ultimately, you wanna have open cell foam breathable underneath you down to the ground or below. But, you know, that gets a little bit more complex, and we'll continue to kind of expand, but it's still, just understand that the mechanics of, we don't want to trap moisture as it's trying to get away from us. We
And
want
then-
to allow it to go and then trap the heat in as many tiny pockets. I can't say that enough.
Let me just talk briefly about the sleeping bag, okay? Because if you're in a situation where you've got a sleeping bag and you're using it during the night, what other time you can use it, right? So you're using it, underneath you, you're going to have something. It's going to be the ground, it's going to be the tent, it's going to be something, but it's going to block that moisture. And what happens is, as Derek's talking about, that moisture is going to hit that barrier. And if your sleeping bag is just sitting right on top of that barrier, it's got nowhere to go except to freeze inside your sleeping bag. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's made out of foam, polyester, wool, or down. It's going to freeze starting in the outer fabric because it's got nowhere else to go, and then it'll slowly move in.
So a cot is the best thing.
Not necessarily, because if you've got all that cold air flowing underneath your cot, it's going to freeze inside the fabric of your cot.
Even if it's polyester.
Even if it's polyester. Yeah, it's going to freeze wherever it is, okay? The way you handle that, and I guess I might as well just go into this. I use an open cell polyurethane foam, the same stuff I make, that's used in the sleeping bags and the clothing. It goes through that pad, and so it keeps it away from my sleeping bag, and then there's a piece of fabric underneath that, and then the vapor barrier.
The plastic. And you pull the other one out.
So what happens is that moisture goes through my bag, through the pad, and it hits that vapor barrier and freezes inside the cloth under the pad. Then you can strip that cloth off when it gets icy, break it up and shake it off. And that's where that keeps it out of your sleeping bag and helps you manage the moisture underneath.
I remember seeing my in-laws' old trailer, or a camp trailer, that's got that 2-3 inch foam, and they just like chuck that all around and chuck kids on it. That's perfect. I mean, you think about this stuff. I mean, a lot of
That was
these old
That was
things.
the older foam too. They got the newer stuff that has fire retardants and stuff in it that really block the exits. So this is the pad that I use underneath. Okay, as you can see, that cloth right there is removable. I can strip it off of this, shake it up, or shake off the ice and put it back on. This is an open cell polyurethane foam. The fabric, you can use pretty much any synthetic fabric. This just happens to be a parachute nylon. Okay.
Something like that, easy cheese. Buy a little bit of foam, whether you put a shell on it or not, that's up to you.
You know, talking about pads, get a quality pad or make a quality pad. These pads are made by Wiggies. I actually spent 65 minutes out. 65 instead of 50. Yeah. It was 50 when we talked. I did another 2 weeks after that. But then the Indian summer came and there was no sense in my staying out anymore. So anyway, I slept on this pad. And this is a well-made pad. It's a durable pad. It's fairly thick and it's full of the same insulation that they put in the Wiggies bag, which is the landline insulation. But I hate this pad because after a week it was just hard. It was uncomfortable. It was okay for the first week, but after that it just didn't work as well. And so I reverted back to my foam pad and I was just a lot more comfortable. Yeah.
What was the name of that store?
Which store?
Where the name you were saying for the pad?
Wiggies.
Oh, Wiggies.
I think it's
Spell that.
Wiggies.com.
Wiggys.
Okay.
And it's .com. And I'm not here to sell Wiggies bags either. I like them, but I like my other bags better. Yeah. It's 1 inch, but it can be 1.5 inches. I actually, it's kind of funny. We've got a queen bed that's kind of old and it's sagging in the middle, and so my wife was sick this last week, and she was sleeping out on the couch, and so I grabbed my sleeping bag and brought it out there and threw the pad under it. So I slept out there with her to keep an eye on her. And then after she got it better, she started sleeping in the bed again, and her back started hurting. So I said, hey, because I've been trying to encourage her to come out and join the tent, right? So I didn't want to, that was impossible. So she's going to have to come out, when the house becomes unlivable. So anyway, we threw the bags down on the living room floor, and she slept on that, and she said her back was really, it didn't hurt in the morning. And I think it's because it was firmer, but also the padding just worked really well. So, yeah.
What about like air mattresses? Like if you had an air mattress, would that not be as good as like not having foam or just sleeping on the ground?
An air mattress will work, but what you need to put on top of it is a vapor barrier, and then your open cell pad, and then your sleeping bag.
Okay.
Any of those inflatable pads, in fact, my mother-in-law has the same thing. The fact that you can inflate them and they hold air, it's completely, you're trapping, it's just like putting a plastic sheet underneath it. So it's comfy, but over time, it's gonna allow that buildup. Let's blast through a few things real quick, and then we'll get into question and answer, and I know some people have to jet on an 8 o'clock meeting. Footwear, I think a lot of us are aware in the old days you get those felt liners. Has anybody ever been warm? I mean, seriously, with those felt liners? It's impossible because it is dense and it traps moisture. And you've got a big old rubber thing at the bottom that's just trapping it in further. And so as you sweat and perspire, it traps it in, and then you stop, you slow down, if you're out ducking, whatever, your weight, it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
So these bathroom boots are good for how many days before you start?
So bathrooms, same thing, you could say they're a moon boot. But a moon boot, I'd rather do a moon boot because there really isn't a suitable, breathable boot on the market that continues to breathe continually, at least that I'm aware of. So Baffin is one brand. You go down and you find any of them, but you basically just want to feel in. If you feel a nice foam liner and it's squishy, again, like fluffy, your feet are going to stay a lot warmer than if it is dense. Baffin, B-A-F-F-I-N. I just got those at Sports Warehouse.
The other thing too, you're going to be hard pressed to find boots like this that have the tall gator on it that are not waterproof. Okay, so the way you manage that is you just have several different liners and you just switch them out. Okay, those liners are going to collect moisture, switch it out when it gets uncomfortable to a dry liner, and then allow those other ones that are wet to dry.
Gratefully, I haven't had to be out for a week at a time.
Now, that's a vapor barrier one, right? So something that will soak it up, you can pull out. And
Not necessarily. The vapor barrier is actually the outer shell of this boot because it's a coated polyester nylon fabric. There's actually a coating on it. If you were to take this apart, you would see a sheen on the back of it.
There's not a perfect boot on the market right this second. So what are we doing? We're compromising. But the reality is if you're buying boots, stay away from felt, stay away from, here's some of the old Army boots that, again, find any Army guy that ever was warm in these. They're just a bunch of rubber. Rubber just it conducts the cold right in your foot. If you are feeling the footwear, go ahead and feel it. If it's dense, felt, you're going to get cold. If it's, in fact, old moon boots, it's going to be surprisingly warm, and of course, the thicker, the better, and lighter and fluffier, the better.
What about like socks? Are wool socks okay, or should we get synthetic socks?
Okay,
Not wearing?
footwear, good question. Socks. Wool is okay, synthetic is even better. But again, it's the same. Everything applies, whether it's your feet, your hands, your head, whatever. It's you want to be synthetic, and you want to allow, you just want to allow that moisture management. You want to make sure you've got moisture to manage, and then we're just wanting to trap tiny pockets of air in as many small places as possible and allow that flow from warm and moist to get to cold and dry.
I don't wear socks when I wear these. Okay.
You're nuts.
Yeah, I am.
Hey, jump right into survival. We're going to jump right into survival. So, what around it? So we've got all these things covered. Open cell foam. We've covered, a variety of different materials. Down, synthetics, fleece. What do we have around us? And to illustrate that point, John has the package that was delivered to my house just about a week ago. Inside that package was a case for a rifle. Open it up. This is exactly the way it came.
Packing peanuts.
How can packing peanuts be used? I heard this for the first time 20 years ago. Phil just said, well, you can crush a packing peanut and fill up your shirt. So I thought, I'll go home and try that. I look like a flipping chipmunk. Or you climb the box lace. If you fill up your whatever garment is, by the way, cotton sweatshirts, same thing. Cotton sweatshirts are horrible. And if you get those damaged, but if you were to say have a fleece and it was really cold, fill it up with packing peanuts, and then if you needed some kind of an outside barrier. So they've had guys unnecessarily die in shipping yards and in warehouses, surrounded by all kinds of things. What else are we walking on in our homes that is open cell foam? What's underneath the carpet? You think, gosh, I don't want to be ripping up my carpet. But you know what? When people get desperate enough house just to stay warm. You are surrounded. What about in your cars? You get a lot of people that die of hypothermia in their cars. What's in our cars that can be used? I can't tell you how many stories, at least 3 that I'm aware of, guys that died in snowcats. Snowcats all have cushy foam seats. You know, when they find the guys, they're frozen up in there, huddled up, and sitting on what could have saved them. And again, this is a tough call because you don't want to be ripping up your Lexus or ripping up your carpets prematurely. And if you wait too long to where you're too desperate, too cold, and don't have enough energy, by then it may be too late. So at some point you've got to make a decision. Am I willing to do something a little bit drastic?
Now make sure, if you're in that situation, you have a tool to actually do it. Okay? That's the pocket knife. Carry one with you. All the time. Have one in your car all the time.
Amazingly, and this I didn't even set this up, it came with, because I bought a gun case, it was foam, and they used a piece of foam and some packing peanuts. And so, as simple as
All those things.
How would you use a piece of foam? I mean, it's something, it's simple. In fact, I was with Phillips a couple weeks ago. You can actually staple foam together with a simple stapler. So getting a simple piece of foam, and in a pinch, staple, 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 it's square, guess what? You just made it grow.
And you don't have to carry a stapler. But the point is, get creative, okay? You can take this, you can roll it, I can stuff it under my shirt, and I can work on keeping my core, okay? I don't have to sew this up. I can cut it into rough shapes. I can put it in the sleeves of my sweatshirt. I can stuff it into my pants, and it's called roll-it stuff. You roll it up, you stuff it in, okay? It doesn't matter if you've got gaps, okay? As long as the gaps don't overwhelm the amount of insulation that you have in your clothing. Okay, so you cut up your furniture, cut up your upholstery, seats can be replaced. You can.
I'm going to jump to 2 things on the house real quick. Houses, let's jump right to plastic wrap. This is an absolute, every time there's a disaster anywhere, I start Googling and see what the stories are that are rolling in. If there is anywhere that has a disaster and it continues to be inclement weather, particularly cold, plastic sheeting is a premium. And again, any of you that have had a window break or even just had a kid go outside and leave the door open, it's a matter of just a couple of minutes and already you're feeling the impact. This true story in Texas was going for $500 and as much as $1,000 a roll. And the kicker was people who wanted to buy it couldn't even get it. But right now, Home Depot and Jones Paper Glass, $20. So if we had a fierce wind, we had an earthquake that blew out the windows, you want to have enough to where you get in, seal off those areas, and at least keep the wind from coming in your house. Another thing that's nice to have is good quality duct tape. This is actually gaffer's tape. When I was talking to the gentleman, it doesn't have to be gaffer's tape. This is $30-40 a roll. I found this from some guys that they put together sets for rocket stars. They use it to actually splash together huge lighting sets. $30-40 a roll, but even the inexpensive duct tape. But the thing is, you want to go with a high quality tape because the low quality tape, when it freezes, you've all seen it. It shrills up and so as a backup, you might want to have a staple gun. Again, you think, gosh, I want to staple my house, but you know what? If it's bad enough, again, it's like ripping the seats out of your car. You want to have the tools and the process and the thing ready. Another thing is, if you don't already have a wood-burning fireplace, people ask, what can I do to heat my home? A few simple things. One is, if you don't already have a wood-burning fireplace and you have an ability to plumb it for a wood-burning fireplace, I'm going to give you my little secret. I found a guy in Genola that goes to the railroad tracks and they're shipping in the big pipes for pipe projects. They ship them on top of these 4x4 oak planks, and he cuts them to whatever length. So I got him to cut them all 18 inches. Now my 2 cords of wood is exactly 2 cords of wood, and I'm fitting the space of probably what would have been normally 3 cords of wood. And it's oak. The BTUs are off the flipping charts. Another thing that is phenomenal is Barlow's Cabinet Shop. They take all of the wood shavings from only their hardwood doors, and they've got a machine out of Germany that they compress them into these eco bricks. In fact, I'm going to tear this open so people can come up and see these. But these not only stack incredibly well, and again, the common theme is you're maximizing the use of your space, but because they're only at hardwood, you're getting phenomenal BTUs. So that's wood burning stove.
Derek, when those get wet, they fall apart.
Yeah, when these get wet, they fall apart. We actually have a wood room off the side of our family room that we keep encased. This is by far the favorite, or just having wood. I'm just showing some examples. Number 2 is kerosene, and this is one that's relatively new. You go back east, there's a ton of houses that are oil heated. I've been researching it a bit. There's 3 different manufacturers. Probably my favorite so far is one called Kuma Stove, K-U-M-A stove.com. They're out of the panhandle of Idaho. A kerosene stove works much like a wood-burning stove. They've got some fancy ones out of Japan. The problem is they have all these electronics. So if the power's out, you're done. The other ones, the mechanical ones, they're on a gravity drip feed. And so you can have a 110 to 250 gallon kerosene tank reservoir drip feeding, and you've got enough to possibly carry you through the entire winter. If anybody's interested in doing a kerosene stove, I am. With our top 2 floors, we're rocking with our wood burning. But the basement, I want to put in a kerosene stove. And if we do like 5 or more, we might be able to do some kind of our own direct thing. Because the closest distributor is Salt Lake, and they want full retail. But if we do 5 or more, we might be able to get some. So that's something else to consider, is kerosene. The last thing is a lot of people have gas fireplaces. And the kicker is, most of them will not work if the power's out. Some of them, surprisingly, will work. You want to find out if yours is one of those that will or won't work. If it does work when the power's out, hit the breaker, and if it still works, don't worry about it. If it doesn't, you want to figure out a battery bypass so you can just ignite that thing. So if we had a major thing and they had a gas break, that's one thing. But if the power's out, at least you can get your gas fireplaces running. So that's really on the housing stuff.
I'm going to revisit the plastic just for a second. Shoot. Economize your space. Take that plastic and make walls of plastic around your heating unit. Okay?
Amen.
This way you're not heating, or trying to heat your entire house. You're going to use less fuel, you'll be warmer, and that's what the plastic's for. So it's not just for the windows. Create walls of it to make a nice warm spot for everybody to be in.
If it gets tough enough, you're trying to create a cocoon around yourself. Excellent point.